This month we're going to look at the new moon on March 2nd, 2022, backed by the stars of constellation Aquarius, culminating in a full moon March 18th in the stars of constellation Virgo, backed by a Pisces sun. Looks like a high-intensity month with a lot of interesting alignments. Saturn stays emphasized throughout the cycle, which could bring a direct continuation of any of the themes that emerged last month during the Capricorn cycle for us. I'm Michael at oneskyastrology, and in this video we're going to take a look at the key points of the lunar cycle from the point of view of constellational astrology, which uses the actual skies. So for more info on that, visit my website, oneskyastrology.com. And this is different from most popular forms of astrology, and some of those forms even place the new moon in Pisces, but we can take a look at this from the point of view of the constellations and see that the sun and moon are here in Aquarius, flanked by Jupiter. And again, all the planets are on one side of the nodal axis. So we have in Taurus, North Node, and in Libra, South Node. And everything's lined up in between them. On the other side of the skies, we have no planets. All right, dizzying. There we are. When we take a look at where everything is, we see Pluto, Mars, and Venus bringing up the rear in late Sagittarius. We have a very close Saturn-Mercury conjunction in Capricorn. We have, moving past the Sun, Moon, Jupiter stellium, we have Neptune at home in Pisces with comet Chiron and dwarf planet Eris. And we have Uranus transiting Aries, brought up by North Node in Taurus. So for the third month in a row, we've got two unusual conditions going on. We have the Kala Amrita Yoga, where all the planets are sort of sandwiched between the two lunar nodes, with the south lunar node dominant, and that favors inner growth over outer gains. And the second unusual condition is the nodal axis resonant entirely with Venus as the nodes transit Taurus and Libra. So let's break this down. Let's unpack the charts. So the new moon sits here in Aquarius, closely flanked by Jupiter, and there's lots of connection and continuation of Capricorn's processes from last month, but by comparison, Aquarius stands in pretty stark contrast. Capricorn generates, sustains, and maintains the stability of forms and structures, but Aquarius disrupts and challenges and evolves that stability. Capricorn seeks security in systems and promotes conformity and group unity. Aquarius seeks change of systems and promotes individuality and group diversity. So needless to say, as evolutionary processes, both are vital. And it's often compared Jupiter and Saturn. So Jupiter is resonant with the energies of Sagittarius and Saturn with Capricorn. And it's often compared that Jupiter represents the force of expansion, and Saturn, by comparison, represents a contracting or inward moving, a sort of retreating, consolidating force. When we think about Capricorn and Aquarius, I find it really helpful to think in terms of the forces of negentropy and entropy, which are really useful terms from thermodynamics, which is basically the study of how energy behaves. So negentropy is the increase of order and coherence in a system over time, and that's a Capricorn function. Entropy, by contrast, is an increase in disorder and randomness in a system over time. And that is an Aquarius function. Scientifically, entropy describes a number of ways that a system can be rearranged and have the same energy. That's important. That idea can help us tease apart the difference between Aquarius's buzzword change and the Scorpio Ophiuchus buzzword of transformation. And I only bring this up because it's helpful to understand. They often get sort of conflated and confused, change and transformation. But change is the rearranging of the pattern while maintaining the essential value of the system, while transformation is a rearranging of the system itself. Like a tadpole will just metamorphose into a frog, like a whole different thing. So when we look at Aquarius, Aquarius is a catalyst for change. It's supportive of individuality and diversity. It's the force that tends to revolutionize through rebellion and opposition to dogmas in favor of objective awareness, and sort of a clean scientific approach to reality. It favors technology. It generally manifests as a really future-forward approach, and it's always motivated by liberation from conditioning factors. This is Aquarius's driving kind of intention, is to disrupt habitual behavior, conditioned factors, those kind of like entrenched neural pathways that we call habits. Yeah, they all stand to be questioned and pushed against by Aquarius. It likes novelty, spontaneity, it likes genius, and for that it tends to be ostracized and kind of cast out from the mainstream. The shadow side of Aquarian energy is that it's aloof. It's aloof to a fault. It's the balance to Leo's like commitment to self. Aquarius is committed to freedom from the constraints of selfhood, or in other words, our conditioned behavior. It tends to the eclectic, the anxious, the hyperactive. It's committed to rebellion, and even if always for what it believes are good reasons, it's almost never easy energy to roll with. So disruption, fragmentation, hysteria, and trauma are often the teaching tools of this kind of unconcerned revolutionary force. Aquarius isn't one of the energies that's overly concerned with the feelings of those under its influence. It correlates to the urge towards liberation and bliss, but also to the discomfort that the needed changes bring. I think of it as ultimately benefic, but some systems consider it a malefic because it's so disruptive. And these are the stars that give the alignment of new moon their backing. This is the flow of energy that sets the tone, as the new moon does for the month's cycle. Jupiter is here, and Jupiter's presence with the luminaries is a very good omen, as I see it. It does very well in Aquarius, but it may act to expand the unpredictable and disruptive qualities, as well as expanding the access to insight and a potential for success and change for the better that Jupiter in Aquarius tends to support. Aquarius conditions Jupiter to produce sometimes shocking or outrageous success or good results, and it's a very fortunate combo of energies. Even if you can never quite like rest easy with anything Aquarian, it tends to bring opportunity and innovation, success, insight, kind of genius ideas that can open doors and create opportunities. And the whole combo here, the three planets that I've mentioned so far, are sextile to Uranus in Aries. A nice close sextile, about half a degree, very close. And I think this is going to help support what's already going to be lent by Aquarius. Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, those resonant with those energies, I think is likely to lend a kind of bird's eye view perspective, a kind of cool collected vantage from which we can see best possible futures, or we could develop here good strategies, think about things in new and unusual ways to great positive effect. And I think here the Uranus Aquarius aloofness looks like a really good balance to the other close contact that Sun Moon are making. This semi-square, again, nice close semi-square. With Venus we have 7 minutes, with Mars 14 minutes, and Pluto's 40 minutes. So all in really tight formation. The semi-square with this Pluto Mars Venus, ordinarily I would say Pluto Mars Venus in Sagittarius could reflect like a really impassioned energy, like a lust for life, like a really rich, moving kind of like passion. But Pluto here means it'll either get turned up to 11, or for others it could reflect an absolute lack of enthusiasm. It could easily portend some transformation of what motivates us. We could develop or transform our philosophical motivation. What we're excited about, and how we engage and appreciate and move forward out of that. The semi-square to the luminaries, it indicates that this transformation might be challenging to engage objectively. We may be subject to Sagittarius's kind of eager, zealous influence. If motivated by those powerful passions, we could get a little excited. We could even get too excited. So if we can apply the cool strategy lent by Aquarius, lent by Uranus, I think it could be a great time to make progress on any relationship problems. We could resolve any difficulties in the balance of masculine and feminine energies on any scale, in any area of life. And another really key factor to consider when we're looking at the tone of this cycle and the new moon. Definitely when we see Mercury and Saturn so closely conjunct, we know we're going to have an emphasis on kind of grounded, pragmatic, focused, determined energy that's going to yield its best results when we approach it with a mindset of steady progress over time. Consistent, kind of persistent focus and slow building and development in one area. And this is how that combo works, tends to support good in our lives. It does lend a kind of serious gravity. It'll actually, I think it could be great. I think it could keep us from spinning out of orbit with all the turbulence of like Pluto, Mars, Venus. All the turbulence of Aquarius, all the turbulence of Uranus. So I'm really glad actually to see the Mercury, Saturn. I feel it's very supportive, and it's going to give groundedness. Where groundedness looks like it's going to be really supportive. So, all in all, I think that, given the context of last month's Capricorn cycle and what it brought up. I know that a lot of people in my circles and sphere, they were facing a lot of obstacles, and it brought up a lot of inner process for them, and that's what the Kala Amrita Yoga will do. It'll orient the awareness and the focus and the whole process of growth throughout this time to the inner. So it's not really about. It's not so much about what's happening in the outer world as much as how we're learning to respond to it, how we're adapting and growing in the choices that we're making along our life path. So those themes, even though we might be pretty happy to move into Aquarius season, and we'll be well into it by March 2nd, but even though it looks really good with Jupiter here, I think the Mercury-Saturn conjunction is gonna connect this cycle with the continuation and development and resolution or emergence of process around what was catalyzed last month. So that's another thing that the Mercury-Saturn conjunction does. It'll link thought and communication to the Capricorn-Saturn process, whatever that may be for us individually. Oh, yeah, let's move on. Waxing quarter moon. Well, here we are on the waxing quarter, 10th of March, and the sun and moon, as always, on the waxing quarter, are making us a square. And this chart looks really great to me. This is the point in the cycle where the pattern begins to emerge. The pattern of the whole cycle kind of starts to take form, and we can sort of start to detect or see or get a clue about what's going on, what's really happening. The sun and moon are exact to Saturn. So moon is trine and sun is semi-sextile. And this is an exact alignment. This is a 0 degree, 0 minute alignment. So as the sun is transiting this kind of critical degree of late Aquarius, signifying culmination or like a completion level expression of those erratic energies. And the moon is grounding this light by reflecting it from stable Taurus. And then at that time, the exact trine semi-sextile from Saturn and Capricorn is a further stabilization. And it's a good balance to the disruptive energies of Aquarius. So I find it very positive. Usually Saturn contact with the luminaries is, double-edged or two-sided at best. But I think in the context of grounding critical Aquarian energies, this is going to be more likely to be a beneficial and stabilizing effect. The sun is like I mentioned, it's on the Aquarius Pisces cusp, and it's conjoined Neptune and Jupiter. And this cusp is a strange place, so it's good to have grounding in the practical, like that Saturn represents. But I think we'll have to engage both the real world, like everyday life, and also the abstract world of spiritual self-development, and just the esoteric in general, if we're really going to make use of everything this cycle offers us. So it should be a time when the potential to have meaningful spiritual experiences or realization of truths beyond the scope of words, of dreams, knowings, visions, intuition, all of that will be at peak with ample support from Capricorn and grounded, stable Taurus. to stabilize these experiences in practical, pragmatic ways, ways that are effective in our lives to bring change and growth, change for the better, and growth at the ground level of everyday experience. Elsewhere in the chart, the Mars Venus conjunction, this kind of they're traveling together, and they've moved into Capricorn. So if we were subject to sort of uprising of a passionate and like compelling, if distorted, feelings, or distorting feelings, the kind of passions that can really cloud our clarity, our vision, this is likely to subside. So Capricorn doesn't really support those kind of that kind of intensity and depth of emotional process. It's a little more pragmatic. So this could shift the whole Venus-Mars process of balance and integration on. I do find it inherently gendered. I think this is about masculine and feminine expression, but very, very broadly. Could be internally, could be externally, could be both. When we start to examine how our internal masculine-feminine relationship is, and how our masculine side is talking to our feminine side, and vice versa, we start to see a lot of patterns that came from the way our mom and dad talk to each other. And we start to see a lot of patterns that express themselves in our relationship dynamics, because that's the human experience. So this whole process is being emphasized. The process of discovery and let's just say gender balance. And in Capricorn, that'll take a far less impassioned turn than in Sagittarius with Pluto. So I would think that around the time of the waxing quarter, things will just really start to stabilize, and we can focus on what's maybe more fruitful in this cycle to put our energies towards. And moving forward to the full moon, the full moon now sees Sun in Pisces. So we have a Sun-Moon opposition on the Pisces-Virgo axis. And this is an axis that's always about channeling the nebulous and abstract, the kind of quantum or the spiritual, whatever that means. That word in and of itself is very Neptunian, very Piscean, very nebulous. I don't know what isn't spiritual. I don't know what is. I don't know what the word means. But in Pisces, we encounter transcendental truths like oneness and interconnectedness and interdependence. We encounter the peace, we encounter the bliss of the undifferentiated and the primordial, the ocean of consciousness that we call a cosmos, a reality. And Virgo is an analytical energy, an orientation to order and analysis that challenges us to channel Pisces' relatively vast, incomprehensible dreamscape in kind of sensible, logical ways. And so it's a challenge. It challenges us. This axis is always like, whoa, what do we? How do we integrate this? How do we organize this? We're talking about sort of getting into an examination of the architecture of the formless. So it's not an easy balance. It's usually interesting and a little bit challenging to approach. But when we can do this, we can organize our thinking about the spiritual dimensions of life, and we can better incorporate the higher truths and spiritual principles into our everyday work and our logical consideration. And the only thing I really see, aside from the Jupiter Neptune Sun conjunction, which I mentioned in my examination of the waxing quarter moon, and interestingly, I think that Jupiter Neptune Sun tends to have an effect in natal charts of people being in like the right place at the right time. It's opportunity, but it's not it can even seem like these people don't, that they just, it's like, how were you just standing there and like made that connection and it led to success, when other people work like dogs and they barely scrape by, and you just, I don't know, you just happen to be. So it's an opportunity, but it comes from just happenstance. It's actually karmic, but it looks like these people are just carried along on the winds of fate, like, uplifted, and almost like in an unfair way. So we might see, with the transiting Sun, Neptune, Jupiter conjunction, being reflected by the full moon, just encourage everyone to keep your eyes open for those like sort of kismets, sort of synchronicity type experiences. And if you find yourself in an opportune way, just accept the blessing gracefully. We do have Pluto trine sextile to the full moon. So Pluto's trine the moon and sextile the sun. This could well increase the emphasis on alignment with truth. And late Sag has a really strong effect of holding things up to that light, the light of truth. And with Pluto here, we could find ourselves compelled to align our critical thinking, our efforts, our service, our work with the deepest ideals of philosophical or religio-spiritual truth. So, again, integrating what began as an Aquarian emergence, a sort of like challenging, eye-opening, interesting, innovative way of looking at things, and then grounding this in actual, maybe spiritual understanding, or again, with the Kala Amrita Yoga in effect, I'm not interpreting these charts in the light of a lot of success or profit-oriented activity. I do think that the best use of this time is going to be likely to turn inward and kind of stay inward and just let the outer world, the experiences we have, sort of drive and feed and fuel that process of examination and contemplation and meditation that ideally will create a sort of crucible where these opportunities can be experienced, but also where we can ground an inner understanding, left brain, logical, an actual comprehensive idea about some of the spiritual realities that are affecting us. To develop or obtain a glimpse of the architecture of the formless. This is the expression of the full moon. So I want to close the examination of full moon by noticing that we are wrapping up the Venusian nodal axis as the North Node is moving towards Aries. So it's half a degree away, and this month we'll see North Node move into Aries, and we'll have Mars Venus axis of rulership. Waning quarter moon. All right, here's the waning quarter moon, 25th of March. And here we see North Node in Aries. We see Saturn in Capricorn with Mars and Venus. Now we have a rolling conjunction. And the moon is in Sagittarius as it squares up with Sun in Pisces for the waning quarter square. I think this is another good configuration. It looks like a great opportunity to continue to channel the unruly spiritual energies that we're likely to have been dealing with. And as we look back on the cycle, which is always the recommended action at this time, at the waning quarter moon, kind of, retrospection, winding things down, examination, with an eye to learning from the cycle, improving, moving towards the next one in a good way. This cycle challenges to integrate Pisces and Virgo. And this moon is a chance to integrate the Piscean mysteries with and into a Sagittarian framework. So that's symbolic of the whole philosophical, religio-spiritual containers of all cultures for. So Sagittarius is like the container, the religious structure, right? And then Pisces is the Pisces is like the spirituality at the heart of religion that gives it, I think, real power. But when you get the two together, you have a cool thing. You have Sagittarius gives us some kind of framework to, and it's a framework vast and comprehensive enough to access the infinite, to access the Piscean dimensions. So the Sagittarian container, these cultural containers they can be ancestral stories or sacred sciences, mysticisms, myths. But Sag has always long been understood to pair well, pair well with Pisces as a container which can hold the kind of impossible fire of transcendental spiritual reality. So we may find it easy to look back with the vantage of how successful we were this month, integrating that kind of higher ideals, truth, and even maybe direct spiritual experiences. Again, just integrating it all into our life path, our everyday life, our work. A lot of this cycle is going to be oriented as a response to emerging obstacle, and that would have been last month, the Capricorn cycle, that we would have sort of slowed down, maybe ground to a slow pace. And then this month is likely to express responses and reactions to that, and the opportunity to access like very visionary, much higher ideas about how to orient ourselves in the everyday life to the changes that our world is undergoing right now. And to wrap it up, we're just going to take a quick look at the next new moon. I always like to look at kind of where we're going, what the whole cycle looks like. I didn't do this last month. I apologize. I just literally spaced it out. So just really briefly, next month on April 1st, we're going to be looking at a Pisces new moon, very close to the comet Chiron and in a close conjunction with Mercury. And the ruler Neptune is going to be joined by Jupiter in Pisces. And Venus and Mars will stay with Saturn in Capricorn. So this is likely to continue the themes of grounding kind of a more abstract, spiritual reality, relationality. Just, I mean, we start to lose the utility of words when we approach the Piscean dimension. So let's just say bringing the infinite into the world of the finite in beautiful, inspiring, visionary ways. And so that in many ways will continue this month's cycle. So we're not moving towards like a radical transition as we approach the waning moon. We're not winding down towards like something radically different. It looks very much to continue to express a sort of process of of uh, of inner clarification and searching and bringing from the realm of our connection to each other and to spirit, value and benefit in the fruits that will nourish us in the ordinary world of stuff and things. All right, gang, as always, thanks for hanging in there. I don't have a lot to say, except I wish everybody a very beautiful month. Thank you for staying in touch with the lunar cycles, and thank you for watching my channel. If you want to help the channel, like the video with a sweet little thumbs up, and if you want to tune in, do the subscribe. Yeah. So, thank you all for watching. See you next time.